I'm going to talk today on a slightly different aspect of management of cardiovascular disease. You all have had multiple lectures on treatment for lipids, statins, hypertension, angiographies, angioplasty. But we must realize that basically atherosclerosis is an inflammatory process. And therefore, we are going to look at the inflammatory aspect of cardiovascular diseases and do we have anything that can target this inflammatory response. Now, we have learned so much about the cause of cardiovascular disease, of which diabetes, lipids, hypertension, thrombotic problems, genetic problems, behavioral problems, and of course the most important one on which I'm going to talk a little bit more today is the inflammatory response. And as you know, cardiovascular disease, in spite of all the advances, remains the #1 cause of death today. And especially in India, we have the misfortune that cardiovascular disease affects the young. Far younger people have problems in India as compared to anywhere else in the world. So we need to really look at this problem extremely seriously. Now, if you look at the risk factors which produce cardiovascular diseases, what's interesting to note is that 60% of people who have cardiovascular disease have either one or no risk factor. So though we say very commonly that you can get heart attacks if you smoke, if you have hypertension, if you have diabetes, and these are of course important and need to be controlled. However, the fact remains that the majority of patients who have a coronary event do not have any of these factors or have just one factor. Many of these people do not have high lipid levels. So therefore, there is something that we are missing out that we need to identify and treat. Now, we know from a long time that atherosclerosis is an inflammatory process. That's nothing new. We learnt it even in medical school that there is an inflammatory response which then progresses, develops atherosclerosis, plaques and further problems. And the various ways in which pathologists have looked at this, if you have an inflamed endothelium, it recruits leukocytes, they penetrate into the intima, and then that's how you get the lipid deposition, the plaque formation and problems relating to that. And then of course you have the inflammatory mediators which actually weaken the plaque cap. As you know, there's a plaque, it's covered by a fibrous cap, and it's when the fibrous cap ruptures that the plaque enters into the lumen and produces a thrombosis and myocardial infarction. So the inflammatory process actually hastens the rupture of this fibrous cap and produces the acute myocardial infarction. LDL, of course, is an important part, and as you know, statins are one of the mainstay in the therapy of coronary artery disease, and it is the oxidized LDL which is a risk factor for inflammation. And even if you were to measure an oxidized LDL, you will find that patients who are in acute coronary syndromes will have much higher levels of oxidized LDL than those with stable angina or with controls, irrespective of what their lipid levels are. The big trial, Jupiter trial, which looked at the effect of rosuvastatin in prevention of coronary artery disease, understood the importance of inflammatory responses, and they looked at both the lipids and the CRP. And they therefore suggested that both you should look at the lipid factors and the inflammatory responses when you treat these patients with coronary artery disease. And we all know that the hsCRP is an important way or an easier way in which you can look at the inflammatory responses. And if you can see from this slide, if you look at the C-reactive protein and if you look at the Framingham estimate, or if you look at the LDL cholesterol, you'll find that those people who have the highest level of C-reactive protein and the highest level of LDL cholesterol who will have the maximum problems. So really there is a correlation between the inflammatory response and the lipid response. Over the years, most of the associations have accepted that we need to monitor CRP and that it gives you a reasonable idea as to who will respond better to therapy. And in fact, those people who have high CRPs are the ones who respond most to statins and have the most beneficial effect. Now, if you look at some of the ways in which the inflammatory response occurs, then if you look at the vessel lumen, this is the vessel lumen and this is the outside. And you can see that there are inflammatory cells which are predominantly activated monocytes. They go from the vessel lumen into the vessel wall. There's LDL circulating around in the blood lumen and that enters the vessel wall. And this LDL gets oxidized. And the oxidized LDL acts as a trigger for the inflammation. So you have the activated monocyte and the activated oxidized LDL, and these produce macrophages which eventually produce foam cells. And I think all of us know about foam cell production being a precursor of atherosclerosis. And therefore this forms two pathways. We learn many pathways, but we don't talk much of these ones. The kynurin pathway and the NF-kB pathways. These are pathways which have been understood, but not too much therapeutic availability is there for preventing these pathways. Along with these pathways, you get platelet aggregation, and that's one of the factors which produces the thrombosis. The NF-kB pathway produces an inflammatory response, which is the TNF-alpha, the IL-1, IL-6, and these are all, as you well know, are inflammatory response markers. And then they produce adhesion molecules, and this produces a whole vicious circle of inflammation. So this is how inflammatory process begins. And it is this inflammatory process which begins in the endothelium, which then produces the atherosclerotic plaque, and which eventually leads to further problems, plaque rupture and myocardial infarction. Now, some of the current therapies that we have in treatment of inflammatory response is one, statins, which act at this level. Then you have various drugs which act at the PPR gamma level. Then you have aspirin and other antiplatelets which act at platelet level. And then you have other drugs which act as the inflammatory mediators. Of all these multiple drugs, the most effective, of course, are aspirin and statins. So that's all we have at the moment in terms of whatever effect that we can have on the inflammatory responses. And you look at the other pathway, the kynurin pathway, then you have two other factors that come into, and we don't know much about these. The first is the 3-HA anti-inflammatory metabolite, and the second is the NF-kB anti-inflammatory. And this is where curcumin, which is basically an extract or the more extract form of turmeric acid, which we all know is good. And these are the two new pathways for which there's a lot of work being done, but unfortunately not much therapeutic availability is there for these responses. So if we were to divide into what we have as current strategies and novel strategies, then the current ones you're well aware of, the statins, the ARBs, aspirin, and drugs like that. And of course the novel ones, which are the 3-HA metabolites and curcumin, which is something novel, which Cadila has produced, and probably we will have a pathway to inhibit this particular anti-inflammatory cycle. This is the kynurin pathway. It's a complicated pathway and you don't need to really remember that. The beneficial effect comes from the 3-HAA. Now there is nothing which is available today to propagate this 3-HAA. So though we know what the problem is, though we know the pathways, we unfortunately do not have a drug which can benefit from this understanding of this knowledge. So the 3-HA is a metabolite which is derived from this metabolic pathway through tryptophan. And it is an effective mechanism in which the body's immune response behaves. So what 3-HA can do is it can inhibit the activation of nuclear factors. It can activate activity of the the nitric oxide. As you know, nitric oxide is a good product which dilates the arteries, which reduces platelet aggregation. And then it also has a lot of effect on interleukin stimulation. If you look more closely at the effects of 3-HA, it can have effect on plasma levels, lipid levels, it can reduce plasma cholesterol and plasma triglyceride, it even increases HDL. And if you look at the inflammatory responses in the vascular endothelium, you'll find that 3-HA reduces vascular inflammation. And if you look at some of the scans and various other effects on atherosclerosis per se, you'll find that it actually reduces or inhibits atherosclerosis. So there's a lot of evidence to show that 3-HA can reduce inflammation, can prevent the progression of atherosclerosis. The unfortunate part is that we do not have a drug which simulates 3-HA and can therefore do all these things. So we have a lot of knowledge, but we haven't reached the stage where we can make this knowledge useful for treatment of our patients. So in summary, 3-HA is a product of the kynurin pathway. It's a powerful inhibitor of atherosclerotic lesions. It has beneficial effects on lipids and it reduces vascular inflammation and atherosclerosis. If we now move on to the second pathway, I showed you the two new pathways that produce the inflammatory response. The NF-κB pathway, it's a complex protein and it does lots of activity in terms of cytokine production, cell survival. As you know, cell undergoes apoptosis and regeneration. It's a complex process of which the NF-κB is one of the important parts. And this NF-κB has been implicated in autoimmune diseases, septic shock, and other immune developments. So if you were to look at this KVFP pathway and see how it works, this is the cell membrane. And what happens is that whenever you have an inflammatory stimuli, this inflammatory stimuli stimulates this kinase of IKB. So there's an activation of this KKB, and this forms an active molecule. So you have an activation of the inflammatory responses. This then enters into the nucleus of the cell and produces pro-inflammatory cytokines. So an external inflammatory stimulus through this pathway of KKB produces pro-inflammatory cytokines, and we all know a lot about this TNF-alpha, interleukin 6, interleukin 1, the ICAM, VCAM. So a lot of data is available on these inflammatory responses, and these are produced by an external stimulus. Now, if you want to stop these inflammatory responses, then curcumin is one drug which is available. Cadila has manufactured that, and you'll hear maybe more about it soon. And this particular drug produces an inhibition of these sites. So what curcumin will do is that it prevents the activation of this NF-κB pathway. It will prevent that translocation of this NF-κB into the nucleus, which was then producing the inflammatory products. So it prevents the release of inflammatory products and therefore reduces inflammation. So at least in this particular pathway of inflammation, we have some hope that we might have a drug which can reduce this inflammatory response. Because I think it's important, because we need to look now beyond statins. We got very good statins, we got LDLs which can be brought down to 50 or 60. Many of you know that PCSK9 inhibitors are now available which can actually reduce your LDL even to 10 or 20. So now we have sort of targeted that part very well. In spite of targeting that part very well, 60% of the people are still having problems. So obviously targeting that is not enough. So we need to look beyond that. Maybe this is one of the pathways. We don't have too much data on it, but at least we are moving into looking at some other part of treatment. Now, what is curcumin? Basically, curcumin is a product of turmeric. As you all know, turmeric is a root which many people use. It's got lots of properties, and many people, as you know, take turmeric in the morning with the milk. They apply turmeric. It's an anti-inflammatory drug, and it's very widely used as a household preparation for treatment. Now, what does it do? It's basically an anti-inflammatory product. It decreases the CRP. It actually has been shown in some minor studies to reduce myocardial infarction post-CABG. It can lower cholesterol levels, both LDL and total cholesterol. It can increase HDL levels. It prevents diabetic nephropathy, reduces proteinuria, and also benefits in terms of insulin release. So it has got definitive beneficial effects in terms of reducing inflammation. Here is a little more information if somebody wants on curcumin. It's presented in the International Journal of Cardiology. It is basically, they mentioned about its anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, anti-carcinogenic, anti-thrombotic properties. It has also been useful in patients who have adriamycin cardiac toxicity. That's a big problem today in cardiology. Anti-malignancy drug-induced cardiomyopathies, and there's a lot of work and data being done on prevention of that. These patients with cardiotoxicity because of drugs can be helped with ARBs, AC inhibitors, beta blockers, and probably we need to look at the inflammatory responses as well. It's known to reduce diabetic cardiovascular complications, and therefore it acts on various pathways, both anti-thrombotic, anti-proliferative, anti-inflammatory, in order to reduce atherosclerosis. So this is like a wide spectrum of benefits that it has. If you look at the statin slides, you can see also statins have a lot of pleiotropic effects. They act on multiple sites. Same way curcumin acts on multiple sites to produce this problem. Now, what is the difference between the curcumin that Cadila is producing and the regular turmeric powder? Now, they're not the same. For example, curcumin is a very highly purified extract obtained from Curcuma longa. Only about 0.3 to 5.4% of raw turmeric is curcumin. So if you just eat turmeric, you'll get curcumin, but you won't get sufficient to produce all these anti-inflammatory responses. The curcumin formula which has been produced contains 50 milligrams of bioavailable curcumin, and in order to obtain 50 milligrams, you would normally have to consume something like 10 to 15 grams of turmeric powder, which is of course impossible to do so. The regular dose of curcumin is about 100 to 200 milligrams. I was just talking to one of the Gadilla people. They have a drug which is 50 milligram capsule, and you can take anywhere from 100 to 200 milligrams up to maximum 400 milligrams. So basically now we have a sort of separate line of therapy beyond what we have today. Of course, the problem is that we do not have large, big multi-center trials. Like we have thousands of patients who have been studied with statins. We certainly don't have that sort of information with curcumin. And I do think that we do need information. I think it's important that we do trials to show that yes, it is beneficial, how much beneficial it is, and how much can it reduce these problems. But I think that we now have some new way of reducing atherosclerosis by targeting the inflammatory part of the atherosclerotic process. So what I've tried to do today is that talk to you about slightly different aspect of atherosclerosis than what you usually hear about diabetes, hypertension, and the fact that we all know that atherosclerosis is an inflammatory response. I've shown you these two inflammatory pathways, which I'm sure you won't remember once you leave this hall, because they are complex pathways. We don't read about them every day, nor do we know too much about them, but they exist. The important thing is that we need to find some treatment to prevent these inflammatory responses from occurring. And if we can do that, then maybe instead of 60% of the patients still having problems, we could reduce it down to maybe 40 or 50%. But I think even if we could reduce it down by even 1% or 2%, there'll be millions of lives which will be saved. Thank you very much.